I never thought buying my dream home would end with me staring down a pair of thugs on my own porch, a shotgun in my hand, but here we are. Let me introduce myself. I'm Luke Whitman, former Army engineer, now working in civilian aerospace. I don't do drama. I don't do HOA meetings. All I ever wanted was peace. A quiet, secluded stretch of lakefront where my wife Molly could garden and my kids, Sam and Leia, could grow up, running barefoot on dirt trails instead of traffic lights and tablets. We found the place. 5 acres, tucked just outside a little town in Colorado. It was perfect. No mortgage, no neighbors in sight, and best of all, no HOA. That last part was the selling point, let me tell you. After years overseas, I'd earned my space. When we signed the deed, my wife cried a little. Sam and Leia were already playing outside before we even unpacked. It was the picture-perfect beginning. But then came the knock. It was early in the morning. I was under the porch working on a drainage line when I heard the sound, clickety-clack, clickety-clack, of orthopedic sandals on gravel. I looked up, and there she was, Patricia Doyle, the president of the Pine Brook Lakes HOA, flanked by 2 other women who looked like they were auditioning for a budget FBI squad, carrying clipboards. Like they owned the world. "Good morning," she chirped, all sunshine and smugness. I wiped my hands on a rag and gave her a polite but cautious nod. "Nice to meet you. What can I help you with?" She didn't waste time. "We're conducting routine compliance inspections," she said. Stepping toward my door like she was already planning on walking right in, I stopped her cold. "Ma'am, I'm not part of Pine Brook Lakes. This is outside your jurisdiction." She blinked at me, confused, like I just told her the sky was green. "That's unlikely," she said, flipping through her clipboard. "All parcels in? This zone are under HOA oversight per our latest amendment." I almost laughed. "You can amend your newsletter all you want, but my deed says I'm independent. The county confirmed it." Her face hardened. She was used to people backing down. But not me. I repeated it clearly this time. "I don't owe you a thing." The guy behind her, bald and twitchy, stepped forward, clearly annoyed. "Do you have that in writing?" "Sure do," I said, but not for random clipboard commandos on my porch. That was when they left. They smirked as they walked away, thinly veiling their threats. I thought that would be the end of it. But no, it wasn't. 3 days later, I walked out the door and saw a laminated sign zip-tied to my gate. "All residents must comply with landscaping standards." It had the HOA logo stapled on like they owned the dirt under my feet. I tore that thing down, sent an email with a polite but firm warning attaching maps of my property lines, and asked them to remove it. That was Tuesday. By Thursday, a letter showed up in the mail. But this wasn't from the county. It wasn't even from a lawyer. It was from the HOA. They demanded I vacate my property for 72 hours so their climate compliance officers could inspect the land. Molly looked pale when she read it. "What do we do?" she asked. I called my lawyer, Janine. She's a salty local, had been suing HOA since the 90s. She didn't mince words. "Tell them to pound sand. They step on your land again, call me or call the sheriff." But it didn't. Stop there. Later that weekend, I saw a black SUV parked halfway down my driveway. Not the usual HOA Subaru, no. This one had tinted windows, and it just sat there waiting. After about 10 minutes, it rolled up closer, stopping 30 feet from the porch. 2 men got out. One had on a windbreaker, the other a tactical turtleneck, looking like he stepped out of a low-budget action movie. "You, Luke Whitman?" the windbreaker asked. "That's me. We strongly recommend you comply with the HOA's request to vacate during inspection." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean that joke of a letter your fake president sent me? Not happening. The guy in..." The tactical turtleneck took a step forward. "This is for your own safety. Potential code risks, liability concerns." I shook my head. "You don't have jurisdiction, and unless you've got a badge, you're trespassing." They didn't like that. Windbreaker narrowed his eyes. We gave you a chance. The next step won't be so friendly. I didn't blink. I took a deep breath and said, "You step on my porch again. The next step is you meeting the business end of a Mossberg." They left, quietly. That night, I checked the security footage I'd installed after their first visit. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Molly asked, "Should we call the cops?" I looked at her and shook my head. "Not yet." But I cleaned the shotgun, loaded it, and left it by the bed. 4 nights later, they came back. It was just after 8 p.m., and the kids were finishing homework. Molly was loading the dishwasher. I was on the couch, sipping bourbon and reading a book when I heard it. The motion alert from the cameras, front perimeter breach. I grabbed the shotgun, slipped on my old flak vest, and told Molly to get the kids into the laundry room and lock the door. She didn't argue. Then the fist slammed into the door. "You've been warned," someone shouted. "Step outside." I stood still, steady, silent. "You're trespassing. I've called the police," I said, loud enough for them to hear. There was a pause. Then a boot hit the door. I stepped aside, close enough to respond. "Try that again," I said, "and I'll take that as a threat." A laugh. "You think you're in control?" I didn't answer. I just chambered a round, loud one of them, moved toward the side window. I opened the kitchen window and fired into the air. The blast echoed through the pines, like thunder. They bolted. By the time the deputy arrived, Molly had queued up the footage. The sheriff recognized one of the guys. He was a contractor with a prior for intimidation. The other had no ID, no license. Then Patricia showed up, storming up the porch like she was walking onto a courtroom TV show, waving a folder. "This man's a danger. He pulled a weapon on community officers," she shouted. One of the deputies held up his hand. "Ma'am, we've seen the footage. You're trespassing again." She waved a map at them, but it wasn't a county map. It was a homemade printout with hand-drawn borders and fake seals. The deputy looked at it for a moment, then at me. "Luke, you got your deed?" I handed it over. The sheriff looked at it, then at Patricia. "This isn't a legal document. In fact, if you're trying to enforce this, it's forgery." She went pale. She backed off, got in her Lexus, and peeled out like a teenager. 2 nights later, someone egged our house. Not regular eggs, rotten ones, sulfur bombs. The porch reeked. My daughter cried. Sam walked the halls with a baseball bat. That was when I knew this wasn't just a boundary dispute, it was a siege. I had Janine file the lawsuit that Friday. Harassment. Fraud, emotional distress, trespassing, the works. A few days later, a manila envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, HOA emails. Typed, dated, real. Make it uncomfortable for him. He's ex-military, probably paranoid. Let's bait him into overreacting. I sent it all to Janine. She replied, "We just went from solid to bulletproof. The court granted us an injunction." Patricia was barred from setting foot near my house. The HOA tried to save face, saying she acted independently, but the media had already caught wind. Patricia showed up at a local news station, screaming about fake news and squatters. Her rant went viral, and someone remixed it with banjo music. 500,000 views in 24 hours. Janine dug deeper. The security firm they hired didn't exist. It was a P.O. box registered to Patricia's cousin. That same day, the sheriff arrested her for fraud, conspiracy, and criminal trespass. Even then, it wasn't over. The HOA tried to hold a secret vote to annex our property using an obscure zoning loophole. Janine and I crashed the meeting, slapped a cease and desist order on the table. Someone slipped me a note on the way out. "You're not alone anymore." 2 weeks later, board members flipped. Patricia got hauled off again, from a golf course, 30 miles away. The HOA dissolved the next day. Victory didn't taste like champagne. It tasted like old sweat and bourbon and the worry that lingered long after the court ruled in our favor. My daughter still has nightmares. My son double-checks the locks. Molly sleeps with a bat beside the bed. but we're still here. Last week I hung a sign at the front gate. Burned into the wood, it reads, "This land is ours. Trespass and meet Dad's shotgun." Sam read it and finally laughed. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and looked out across the lake. Finally quiet. If you've ever dealt with an HOA like this, or if you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours, let me know down in the comments. Was I wrong to stand my ground? Or is this what standing up for your family is supposed to look like? Tell me what you would do, because something tells me this isn't the last we've heard from Pinebrook.